if there was one question to ask to a designer, what would that be to try to get on the same page from the beginning? And I would say, ask him or her, how do they want that space to feel?
All right. From our plushly appointed new podcast studio inside Specialty Forest Products in Hudson, New Hampshire, this is All Things Wood Floor, brought to you by Wood Floor Business. I'm your host, Steve Diggins. Today's episode is a special one. I sat down with Milton Goodwin and Tim Ryan from AHF Products, two guys who've lived in this industry from the inside out. We've covered the full spectrum in this one: design, color, space, texture, new product shaping the future, old school techniques that still outperform, and the real world advancements that connect both worlds. It's this kind of conversation where novices will get clarity, experts will get depth, and everyone gets a few laughs along the way. Just when things were heating up, Michelle Zellman from AHF Products drops in with a little cameo to throw a little pop into our floor jam. Informative, funny, light, and genuinely helpful. This is the kind of episode that reminds you why hardwood flooring is both a craft and a culture. Milton Goodwin, Tim Ryan, AHF Products, floor pros around the world. Say it with me. Let's get to it. Welcome aboard. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself and we'll get rolling here.
Well, first off, thanks for having us on. Get to talk a little bit. I enjoyed our last call. I didn't realize we had as much in common as we did, and we've been around the block a few times, so that was kind of cool. Been in the wood business for a while. I went through a variety of roles under the Armstrong, the old Armstrong, as most people know it. I left to go to another company that was in the STC or LBT world. I came back, was watching AHF and Armstrong. I live here in Lancaster, which is home to Armstrong. And I really liked what AHF was doing with the wood business specifically. And when they came and asked me if I was interested in coming back, I jumped at the chance. So I've been back at AHF now for, this is my 5th year and been doing hardwood. So I was doing what I was doing when I left Armstrong. So quite a few things have changed, but quite a few things are the same. It was nice to come back and see. I'd say probably 50% of the people were people that I had worked with previously. So it's always good to see familiar faces. The industry's changed a little bit, but AHF is still the provider of a lot of hardwood in the industry. I think we have a very dominant share in solid hardwood, which would be under Bruce Hartco Robbins. Are the 3 major ones. We've got more brands than that, but we'll keep it to those 3, with Bruce being the bigger, the grandfather, I'll call it, of the brands. 100 plus years old, all of them. And then on the engineered side, the same 3 brands dominate. So I've got plants here in the U.S., solid hardwood plants. We've got 2. We've got 1 engineered plant in the U.S., and then we've got an engineered plant in Cambodia that service all of that business. We do source some products from some other folks that do a couple things we don't do, or we choose not to do them. And so it keeps me pretty busy working with the team to keep all of those balls in the air.
Yeah, you've been busy for a long time. I went back and listened to some of what we were talking about. You're right. When you get a couple old floor guys and their old floor stories together, there's so much in common. Tim, you're the new kid on the block. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got involved in all this.
Well, I actually came from Motorola, and but then started as a distributor rep for an Armstrong distributor out in the Southwest, and then got into engineered hardwood in the mid to late 90s. And then got into product development after that, kind of out of necessity because we needed a private label line, and then kind of morphed over to the manufacturing side with a couple different people. And then in 2019, ended up at LM Flooring. And then when AHF purchased them, I was able to meet my fearless leader here, Milton, and under his direction, lead the product development and innovation and get to think creatively and try to come up with new, better ways to do things that'll separate us from the competition. So it's been an interesting journey for me as well. If you'd asked me in college if I'd be doing this, I would have thought you were nuts. Hey, I didn't really particularly like salesmen, to be honest with you. I think like most people, you think, oh, these people, you think of the connotation of a used car salesman, but I'm a very competitive person, played college baseball. And I think what helped me was just treating it as a competition, right? Doing something better than the competitor. And that's kind of how I approached it. And I had some good mentors and worked for a good company, obviously with great products. Armstrong was really dominant back then. And so got some lucky breaks along the way. And here we are. But like I said, I would have never imagined this is what I would be doing if you'd asked me in my 20s or certainly in college, but feel like it's where I belong.
What I'm seeing here is you guys are kind of pushing the category further, and I'm seeing natural choice, Milton, and I'm hearing natural reflections. Am I going down the right history here?
Yeah, they're the same name. So a natural choice and natural reflections, for those who don't know that name or those names, that is a patented product that Bruce, the team, developed over 20 years ago. It's 5/16. So to simplify it for those out there, take a 3/4 inch thick piece of solid wood and cut it in half, and you end up with 5/16. And you're like, well, why would you do that? Well, there are a lot of great reasons to do it, but the main reason is it's fantastic for remodels. So people that have height issues in their floors, you get the same beautiful floor that you get with a 3/4 inch solid. And in those days, we only provided it in 2¼ inch thick width. And so our team, our technical team, we got some wood scientists out there that know how to manipulate and do things to wood that allows it to do things that consumers are asking for. So consumers want wider width flooring, but to cut a piece of wood to a thinner, you have to be much more careful in how you dry it and what you're doing with it. So really the technology that we employed or are using with 5/16 to take it to 3¼ inches wide, which is our number one selling width in solid wood. A lot of people think it's 2¼ but it's actually 3¼ So the number one width that people ask for, we now are doing in 5/16 under natural choice. And it's really another step in the drying process, which I don't want to get into the details and we don't like to share those trade secrets, but let's just suffice it to say that we spend more time drying it and acclimating it to allow it to go to a wider width and do the things that you want. But there was another innovation along the way that really helped with that, and that was the adhesive. So most 5/16 was installed using a staple gun and getting the contractors to put enough staples in it and all the things that could go wrong out there. You can still staple this product, but we are recommending that you use our Bruce Summit adhesive, which is 100% RH adhesive. And so, as we all know, moisture or water is the Achilles heel or can be the Achilles of wood. And if you follow instructions, it's not going to be a problem. But in case people don't follow those instructions or they happen to be in a situation where moisture might be a part of the problem or could be the problem, by using this moisture adhesive, we protect you. So why did we do this? The reason why is because, as many people know, the demographics of the United States is people are migrating from the Northeast to the South. And all the construction basically south of the Mason-Dixon line is done on concrete slabs. And people aspire to solid hardwood. It's not impossible to glue 3/4 inch thick wood down, but it's very difficult. It's expensive. And usually it requires you to put sleeves on the floor, separate the floor. And by the time you do all those things, your costs are prohibitive. But now in the sunshine states, as I call it, on concrete slabs, using this adhesive and using our 5/16, you can get a solid hardwood floor. And the first test installs we did were in Texas. And I actually got one of the test installs pictures from the couple that we did the test install. And she was saying that everybody in their neighborhood was very jealous of the fact that she had a solid hardwood floor and everybody else in the neighborhood had a vinyl floor.
Right.
And how did she get a hardwood floor? And she said, well, I'm lucky enough to work with AHF, and they allowed me to be, quote unquote, the guinea pig for the 5/16 wider width. And so this product's being officially kicked off. We showed it at Surfaces. It's literally rolling out as we're talking here on the phone. We call it a webinar where we do all the training for our salespeople, did with our distributors, our salespeople, their salespeople last week. And we're very excited about it. So for those people that know hardwood flooring that are picking up their suitcases and moving to Florida or South Carolina or Texas or anywhere to chase warm weather, if they can get the same beautiful floor that they're used to. It is a square inch, so it looks like site finish.
Yeah.
It also happens to be the right thickness for most of the ceramic tile that it butts up to. So if you're going to one of those states and you're going to put ceramic tile in your bathroom and you want the hardwood floor to butt up to it, you can now do it. So that's a really cool innovation that the teams figured out how to do it and was helped along by the adhesive industry with their new technology.
What made you look back at this and go, we can do more with this?
People were talking about like 10 years ago, how much we sold, and we started discussing problems that we had and problems that the product had. And not that we weren't selling, but we just weren't selling as much of it. And we started with having the question, well, people would aspire to something better than 2.25. And can we make this product wider?
Right.
And that's when the scientists, the people that really know how to do things with the kiln and with drying, said, hey, we would, in order for this product to be successful, we would need to change how we dry the wood. So they started looking into it. At the same time, I would say that I was asking questions about the install, and when people had failures, why did it fail?
Right.
And they were saying, well, Milton, almost 100% of the time, they either didn't put enough staples in or they had a moisture problem that they didn't take care of.
True.
And so today in solid wood, people talk about acclimation, but the reality is if you actually go to the NWFA, it talks about making sure that the subfloor and the wood are acclimated at the same level. So if it's a 8%, your subfloor is an 8%, and it can't change. And so when we started asking around and talking about the adhesive, one of our technical guys and the guys that handles our claims was like, he goes, Milt, we got an adhesive. He goes, we call it the silver bullet. I was like, what's a silver bullet? He goes, the silver bullet is 100% RH adhesive, Summit Select. And if you use it, it'll protect you against moisture problems. And so we basically took those products once we got it and we started putting it in I call them our torch chambers.
Yep.
Where we can torture wood to see where it's going to break. And so we can make it look like a desert. We can make it be like a rainforest. And we put the product in there and it held up beautifully. In fact, we took it to 80% RH. We're not recommending this, by the way, we took it to 80%. So you can imagine water.
It's a greenhouse.
Side of the wall.
Yep.
And we had one board that failed in that environment. We had 0 failures in what the NWFA recommends, which I believe is between 30 and 65% or something like that. So, I mean, we knew that we were onto it, and we've since done, like I said, we've done tests out in the field and real world applications. So we know that it'll work. So it really just people at me and others asking questions around how do we do this and how do we expand it. And the feedback from the field on bringing it back, especially in the southern states, has been, we have been waiting and waiting. Thank goodness you guys figured this thing out. So they're excited about it and we're excited about it.
All right, let me ask you a couple technical questions. Have they made a specific choice of, let's say, Appalachian lumber? And second, whether it's quartered, part quartered, not quartered, just plain sawn, mixed?
This is plain sawn and it's all Appalachian lumber.
Okay. Gotcha.
I mean, that's where our plants are. We didn't go looking for special lumber out of some other part of the United States. We think we've got, at least in the United States of America, we think Appalachian lumber is the best lumber out there.
Was this out of Beverly, West Virginia?
Beverly is the plant that will be doing it. We would have to put equipment in our West Plains, Missouri. So a lot of people know on Bruce, they know Dundee. Basically, this is Dundee and 5/16 our natural choice. So if you like Dundee or you know Dundee, which we just redid that line, this product will give you the same beautiful visual, low gloss, high gloss, and it's what you can get from this product.
Where is this going to fit into the market, you think, price-wise? And is it going to be full distribution or just the big box stores?
It's going to be through our distribution network. It's not going to be on a direct basis. Doesn't mean it's somewhere down the line, but our distributors are the one that built the 5/16 business, and we wanted them to be our first go-to-market team. So all of the distributors, if you're a floor covering dealer out there, contact your distributor. and they'll be able to help you with natural choice. Bruce does have, our breadth of offering, every product that we make in solid hardwood, we make a Bruce version of it. We can't say that about any other brand we have, but in Bruce, if we make it in hardwood or engineered, either one, we make a structure in Bruce. Bruce is out there, and if you want a price point product, we have it. If you want a higher end version, we've got it in that as well. So 5/16 to answer your question on where the price point will be, it'll be below a standard and better product like Dundee.
Yep.
So it'll be a little bit more economical, and that's mainly driven by the savings of splitting the board in half. There's a cost associated with that. But we know that we're competing, especially in the sunshine states, with ceramic tile and SPC. So it will be more competitively priced to compete favorably with those other competing products.
You guys got tech service background in that? Because listen, I'm still an NWFA. You don't put solid on concrete. However, the original problem with the thinner products going back to the 30s was there was no such thing as considering to glue down. So if you take the fact that you do test the slab and you use the recommended adhesive and you use the proper pattern and et cetera, and the fact that it is 5/16 is far more flexible, you should have way better results with the concrete.
Well, Steve, you just landed on it. The flexibility of 5/16 for those people that may not be an installer, you've got to be able to manipulate the board, especially on concrete and especially in adhesive. I'm not strong enough to manipulate a 3/4 inch piece of wood.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's one of the beauties of 3/4 inch wood. It's meant to be there, and you can't manipulate.
Well, it's structural. Yeah. I mean, it's structural.
Yeah,
That could put on.
you can manipulate. It's very straight. The manipulation, it's not like you're having to bend it 1/4 of an inch, but if you need to move it 1/8 or 16th, you can do it with 5.
Yeah, there's a couple things here. There's mastic memory and there's memory.
Well, we also spent $30-some million putting in new sanding equipment. So we're panel sanding or flat sanding this product, and the tolerances are unbelievable with the new equipment. We don't rail sand anymore in our solid plant. So any of our square end products, Collinswood's a new one we have just coming out. This product, it's unbelievable how flat that product is.
The technology is different than it was 20 years ago. So, MVR ratings and moisture content of the subfloor and its ability to prevent that, to keep this floor from moving. And then the other thing you said that's interesting is, from a technical standpoint, wood behaves different in different orientations, right? With the grain, across the grain, tangential, radial. And while this is not a rift and quartered, I hope someday we will get to there. We're currently doing some rift and quartered development on the engineered side, but northern grown lumber does react to dimensional changes and environmental changes differently than southern grown lumber. And it's not that there's not a place for both of them. So I think all of those innovations kind of collided here, where again, it wasn't about innovation for innovation's sake. It was about removing a barrier to create a better experience and a better performance. And when you take the cut, when you take the adhesive, when you take the thickness of the plank, and then now you can put that on a concrete slab with a high degree of certainty that it's going to work without creating transition issues, which is a whole different issue when you're dealing with a concrete slab versus, wood subfloors that were designed for 3/4. Because, unless you're talking about a custom home, they're typically not recessing the slab to allow you to put a 3/4 solid product over concrete in a kitchen. You have a problem with this thing called dishwashers. You have a problem with this thing called built-ins, right? That creates an issue. So it really, I think to Milton's credit, this wasn't about innovation just for the sake of innovation or technology. This solved a problem in a meaningful way.
Right, listen, Tim, you're my new best friend. Now, you just opened up this whole textbook we're not going to go down, but you're right. Are you saying we have a list of adhesives that are good for this, or are you going to launch your own adhesive?
We have our own adhesive it's Bruce Summit Select is what it's called.
Okay.
In all fairness to the industry, if you use our adhesives, we have changed our warranties. So if you follow our instructions and you follow our recommendations, you get an additional 10 years of warranty on the standard warranty. So on this particular product, you would go from 25 to 35 years by using our adhesive. If you step outside of our adhesive and you use somebody else's 100%, you now have 2 points of warranty. You have our warranty, and then you would have to go to the adhesive guy for his warranty. So we've had this adhesive, and now that we've been able to marry the two products together, we're giving you a bigger warranty or a more robust warranty. And we've taken that out and discussed it with consumers. For products that have a year warranty, we're giving you 10 if you follow our instructions. If you buy a product that has a lifetime warranty, which would be most of our solid wood, we're offering a transferable warranty, which we are pretty sure nobody else is doing that in the industry.
Right.
But it's just like with other things in the home, transferable means something if you're selling a house, and we're now going to be doing that on our solid hardwood.
All right. So question, I assume from the talk here, we're talking full spread, full trowel. We're not talking glue assist, right?
No, this is a full spread adhesive.
That's right.
It comes
Yeah.
with a specific trowel you have to use, comes
Yep.
with it.
Yep.
So please, Mr. Installer, use a trowel that comes with your bucket. Don't go and use a different trowel.
They do that, by the way. They'd use a fork if they could use a fork.
So I would recommend that you follow our simple instructions no matter what our installation is. But on this particular one, use the adhesive we recommend and use the trowel that comes with the bucket.
On a normal residential job, you're going to be fine. But I guess, the little asterisk, as they say, on a large commercial job, and it sounds like you've got a lot of experience on the installation side, you either need to re-notch the trowel or you need to replace the trowel, right? The average residential job, you're not going to be gluing down 5, 6, 7, 8,000 feet of flooring. If you got into a commercial application, to Milton's point, spread rate is critical. We know it works. It's been tested. We've got a wood scientist whose brain is bigger than anybody's I've ever met, and this guy has forgot more than I'll ever know. And I think I'm fairly technically savvy on the wood side of the business.
I'm just assuming technically, when you explain this to me and it's full trowel, it sounds with the spread rate specs and everything that this means it's probably also a vapor retarder or barrier. Would that be accurate?
Yes, it's basically the adhesive is separating your wood floor from the concrete subfloor. So
Excellent.
the technology has been out there. It seems like it gets better every year, but it's probably been out there 7 or 8 years. Almost everybody that is putting flooring down over concrete is using the 100%. If it's adhesive that they have to put down, they better be using an adhesive with a moisture barrier. And they got different levels. You got 70%, 80%, 90, 95. This is 100. So I'm not aware of anything greater than 100.
No, there are some that are close. You got to do them twice. But the thing is, you also starts with whoever's doing this job. One, identify, do you have gypcrete? Do you have concrete? And do a concrete Tramex test or one of several other, there's calcium chloride, there's vapor sheet test, etc. Know your floor.
You're not absolved. You're not absolved from checking the normal NWFA recommendations.
Yeah.
However, your best chance for success is using the 100% RH Bruce Summit Select Adhesive.
Cool. That's good.
So if you cut a corner, we're going to try to help you, but I wouldn't recommend cutting a corner either. You can go to our website. You can call us. You can go to floorexpert.com, which a lot of people don't know that, but floorexpert.com will get you to everything you ever wanted to know about any Armstrong floor. All of our instructions are there. Everything about our products are there, and it's available to anybody that wants to go there, and they can read it for themselves.
This episode is sponsored by AHF Products. AHF is raising the bar with Bruce Natural Choice Solid Hardwood, which is made in the United States using Appalachian lumber. Paired with the Summit Select adhesive system, it makes glue-down installation over concrete easier by eliminating moisture and pH testing, helping reduce callbacks and saving time. Add expanded unfinished options and stylish low-gloss finishes, and you've got products built for today's flooring professionals. Learn more from AHF Products and see what's new for your next project at ahfproducts.com.
All right, I'm going to switch gears real quick. Am I right in what I was looking at some of the stuff you sent me that you're introducing a low gloss option, which is pretty popular right now to do?
We did. So Bruce Dunby is, I couldn't find anybody to give me the exact birthday, but it's close to 28 years old.
Okay.
It's the industry standard the distributors and people that have been selling hardwood for any length of time eventually run into, if especially in solid hardwood, they'll run into Dundee. So it was a standard in many homes, home builders across America, whether it's Pulte, Ryan, Ryland, all those names that were putting Dundee in. And so when I got here, I was looking at the Dundee line, and it kind of morphed over time into a variety of different directions, but it was time for it to be, at least I thought that it needed to be cleaned up and brought into 2026 standards. So that meant that we needed, today people gravitate to lower gloss products, whether it's engineered or solid. So we revamped the color palette and we provided the product in a low gloss version that we are launching. So now, people would look at a 70 gloss, which I think is a beautiful floor. It's what a shining floor is a clean floor, but a lot of people want a lower gloss and we weren't giving it to them. So the Tims of the world can tell you the gloss levels, but give you instead of a 70 gloss, we're going to give you a 20 gloss. The response has been fantastic. I mean, more than I could have ever thought. I was like, what are we doing? We're just going to add low gloss to this thing. And it's a beautiful product. And the color palette is really nice. We've got 12 colors. Comes with 2 1/4, 3 1/4, 4 and 5, low gloss and high gloss. It's very simple for the retailers out there to sell. If they want a product that stood the test of time, somebody wants a traditional solid hardwood floor, just take them over to the samples and show it to them all of the day. They're going to find the color they like. They're going to find the gloss they like. And it's very simple.
You're meeting marketing demands. People are saying, I'd like to see more satin.
Well, Tim may talk about it when you're talking about design, but we, on the engineered side, we pushed the gloss level down to 5. And now we're watching the marketplace gravitate back up to 10 and 15 and 20. It's whatever the product calls for, whichever way the customer wants to take it. I think that people, we did, I don't know, Tim, 10 years of 5 gloss, so now it's like fashion.
It's all circular. Yeah. And it's a balance, Steve, because, lower glosses in some respects hide scratches and hides dents. It hides what I call life throws at it. But on the other hand, a little bit of gloss is beneficial to the depth of color, right? And as darker colors, and we're now starting to see make a little bit of a resurgence. I mean, we call them saturated colors on a, maybe a technical side, but these raw, light organics or, the gray colors, they really did lend themselves to that 5 gloss. We even played around with some finishes that were 3 that were pretty much dead flat that looked like it was, hand rubbed furniture. And there's a look and there's an aesthetic, and there's particularly at the premium buyer, they really like that visual. But it's always a balance because the gloss does affect the color. And as more saturated colors come back, the gloss naturally is kind of starting to gravitate back. But it really helps with what life throws at it. A combination of, from a development standpoint, as hand scraping kind of started winding down, how could you make oak in particular a very livable floor that would, tell the tales of mom and the kids growing up? Nobody wants to put the first dent in the floor, the first scratch, right? But I think a floor that looks lived in and loved and looks antique, they're okay with that. But, as hand scraping went away, we started playing around with alternate textures, which became wire brushing. And we've actually developed about 7 different ways of wire brushing products, which, you might say that's kind of extreme, but they all look uniquely different and they all have a different kind of story behind them. Like I say, oxymoron jumbo shrimp, right? I'm kind of fascinated with driftwood, right? Driftwood is rough but smooth. The tree fell and it, washed away in between erosion and sand and water and all of this. It's got a lot of texture, but there's nothing rough about it. So we have a texture that, I challenged the factory and spent a lot of time working with them on to try to emulate that rough but smooth. And then we have standard wire brushing. We have very small diameter. We have different applications without getting into the total weeds. And so we've got a lot of different ways of texturing wood that I think appear to be more natural as opposed to contrived. And then when you couple that with gloss and color, it really opens, tremendous opportunity to get creative with what we can offer, because we've got I'm blessed to work with factories that have tremendous people. AHF and LM were never shy of putting money into meaningful innovation. And so it's made my job a lot easier than I think, maybe some of my counterparts out there that, we really have the champagne budget when we need to make champagne. As a real, everybody's got champagne taste and a beer budget. This company's willing to invest when it makes sense. And that, not to, I'd like to take, continue to get some of the credit for when things go good, but the company does make that easier because of its willingness to do those things.
I love the anecdote. You're right. Who wants to make the first dent? You ever have, like in the 70s, everybody had that crazy aunt that bought furniture that had plastic over it for 25 years. And
yeah,
you get your butt on that plastic and don't you lift that up again.
Yeah.
Whether you're making a 70 gloss or a 3 or a 5 or a 10, et cetera, but people don't always understand the chemistry that you're using. It doesn't make one softer or less durable than another. That's not what we're talking about here, correct?
Absolutely. It has no effect on stain resistance, cleanability, durability, or, in this case, scratch resistance is really more of what we call tabor or abrasion resistance. And the gloss level doesn't have an effect on the actual performance. Now, certain cars show dents and scratches more than other cars, right? Even though they're shiny. So shinier finishes tend to not camouflage some things as well as lower gloss finishes. But from an actual stain resistance, how you clean them and how long they would last from a standpoint of foot traffic, there's no effect. There's no effect. So you're not sacrificing performance for gloss, I think is really what your question is.
What you've been able to do with a pre-finished floor, and I have one that's 25 years in my house and one that's 20. Other than dusting, there's not a scratch. And I have dogs. That's how far pre-finished has come, right? Stuff's insane.
You've got systems now, from a couple of the bigger players, I don't know if we need to say names or not, but they really are, they're pad and recoats. You're not physically abrading to recoat the floor. It's a chemical. So it's think of like primer over it to where the new finish sticks. So, in theory, you're never touching the wood again. You're simply putting finish on top of finish. And you've also got these products that really, it's chemistry to become a catalyst for the finish to stick.
You have to facilitate a chemical bond more than the mechanical bond we used to put in. But the other thing is you got to use a bonding agent, or just please, people, go test the floor. How great for the consumer that they may never have to have the floor sanded, which is so for some people.
We are selling the only forever floor.
Yeah. There you go. That's what it is. All right, I'm switching gears on you guys. I want to talk about something you guys are famous for. Is you're still like top in your field in the unfinished engineered, if I'm not mistaken. Is this stuff that AHF is doing to expand? Are we working more developments in unfinished materials?
You bet. So we re-entered the unfinished solid market, now going on our second year. You probably sold some Bruce unfinished back in the day.
I bought a truckload at the show.
So Tom was right. The market was right. A lot of unfinished companies kind of went away through COVID and a lot of other things. So we re-entered the market out of our West Plains, Missouri plant.
Yep.
And we are also heavily into unfinished engineered. So we're making unfinished engineered in our Turney, Tennessee plant, and we're making unfinished engineered in our Cambodia plant. It's an interesting dynamic. Engineered wood is 70% of the total wood market. It'll be interesting to see. Today, unfinished wood is predominantly solid wood. Okay. There are many camps that believe that unfinished engineered will grow and grow. Don't think it'll ever take away completely from solid, but if you want a perfectly smooth, wide plank, engineered will give you the wide plank. It gives you multiple species to pick from. We do it in white oak, red oak, and hickory. We can also, out of Cambodia, we're providing European white oak. So completely different. A lot of people think white oak is white oak. American white oak is completely different than European white oak. The white oak, in either solid or engineered, gives you a beautiful canvas to do whatever color you want. In the design world, people want to pick their colors. They want to coordinate with their cabinets. And you can do that with unfinished. And we want to be a part of that. And we are a part of it now. And our solid unfinished is taking off like a rocket. unfinished. It's a snowball rolling down the hill. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
I want to strike on a point on that too, is what, and Tim, you said this, there is still a cyclical evolution, and it's not just color and grading and design and fashion, but we run into, with technical advances, we run into issues. Engineer was designed for moisture, and I mean the presentation of moisture. A lot of it was not designed for is a full absence. People added the pellet stove. They added radiant heat, thinking, well, it's engineered, it'll be fine. That is not a good thing with hickory veneers. It's not a good thing with certain types of center core veneers. I do a lot of inspections, and I see splits, and I see checks and things. So knowing that you've got the lab people to test, and you consult with all the experts you can to look at these things, and you're right, we need plank that's stable, that won't create claims.
The reality is, could you have a 7.5-inch long length white oak floor in New England? You could, but it would pose far more challenges in a solid product than it would in an engineered. And not like ha funny, but Steve, sometimes it's almost comical to me when, we'll go to trade shows or other places, and you'll hear booth A talk about solid is the only real wood floor, and you should only have a solid floor, but they don't make engineered wood floors. And then you go to booth B and they only make engineered floors, and they're talking about how bad solid wood floors on. Again, I think one of the beauties of AHF is we make them both. We're not saying one is better than the other. We're saying, let's look at the application. Let's look at the desired outcome. Let's look at the design. Let's look at scale and portion. I mean, I always try to say, look, color creates a mood, and texture changes how a room feels. Finish affects how light behaves, and we could go down that rabbit hole because there's a whole lot of different things that we could go there. But width influences scale, and I think because a hardwood floor, shouldn't be thought of as simply as a species or a stain color, but it's often the design foundation of a home because it has the ability to influence how every other material, color, and texture interrelates to it. And so I think when you understand how those and texture and scale and layout, I think that's where you need choices. And we offer the choices. We're not a one-trick pony. We're not saying, oh, you should only have engineered wood floor because it's the greatest. We're not saying you should only have a solid wood floor. We have 3/4 solid. We have 5/16 solid. We've got just about every width and thickness and configuration you could ever think of in engineered wood flooring. Why? Because it's appropriate. Yeah. Choices are needed to arrive at the best solution for what you're trying to achieve.
The people that don't have those products are 5 years away from putting their salesman on the road with those products. It's just, that's the natural progression.
Yeah. Well, our unfinished and engineered, we follow the NWFA standard, 2.5 millimeters a minimum. We're at 3 and 4. Yep. And I will tell you, our fastest growing business in engineered is on thicker veneer products. People want to hear, they may never do it, but they want to hear, can my floor be refinished?
Is everything you're working on it's all NAFMA? You're including NAFMA, you're NAFMA certified, NAFMA. Okay. Because that's changed too.
Certified.
Okay.
We just had the certification for our unfinished plant. Almost every manufacturer has their own grading scale. We try to adhere to the NAFMA, NWFA standards. We like anybody, we don't give out our grading rules. Sure. But we have a new product coming out. It's engineered and it's following the NAFMA standards for select engineered.
Sure.
Thank you to AHF Products for sponsoring this episode of All Things Wood Floor. Listen for part 2 of this episode coming soon. Thanks for listening.